Hi, this is Deacon Larry, and this is Renewed. Hello, sisters and brothers. As we continue our journey through the Lenten season, there are often opportunities for prayer. One of the calls of the church, one of the precepts of the church is for us to celebrate the sacrament of reconciliation at least once a year. And in particular, a time for that is in the Lenten season. Often communal services of reconciliation or the individual celebration of the sacrament of reconciliation are available to us in this season. In preparation, we often talk about doing an examination of conscience. Last night in our RCIA program, we were looking at a thing called scrutinies. Scrutinies are simply an examen, a way to look at our life. St. Ignatius Loyola, in his great spiritual exercises, recommended that we do a daily examen as a part of our prayer life. And in the Jesuit spiritual tradition today, often we're encouraged to pray and examine at least once a day, perhaps twice a day. Beginning of the day or the end of the day. If it's at the beginning of the day, looking back at yesterday, the end of the day, looking back at today. The way the examen works is we simply say, good and gracious God, you are present to us, you have been present to us today. Help me to reflect on my day that I might grow and be renewed. And then to take a conscious journey and go back from our feet hitting the floor in the morning to what we did on the way to school, to work, dealing with the kids, all the kinds of interactions that we've had in the course of the day, and to follow our path through the day, just to recall our day. Then we examine at a deeper level and say, where did I see God today? Where did God speak today? Was there a nudge I felt here? Did a word come to me here? Did someone say something that stirred in me an appreciation of your presence, Lord, in this day? Then we take a chance to look at those parts of the day when we've been broken. The unkind word that we said, the response that we had to someone on the road or on an email. That was the emergence of sin in our life in the course of the day. We end the examen then with asking God to free us from those things that are sinful in us, that are broken in us, to bring us healing, but also to let His grace overflow in us that we might be more aware of His presence each day. The examen isn't intended for us to become just more and more aware of our sinfulness. It's to make us more and more aware of God's presence in our life, Christ in the Spirit speaking to us every day of our life more and more. That kind of awareness can grow if we practice the examen. Now, there are many, many different kinds of examens and examinations of conscience, various forms of the Ignatian model that I just had. You can also take the scripture and do an examen. Very much pray for God to give us an understanding of His presence in our life, and then to be able to walk through. We certainly can use the 10 Commandments and ask, Lord, have you been the center of my life, as the first commandment calls us to? Not to speak the Lord's name in vain. Lord, have I used my tongue, my words, my thoughts to praise you? Have I been adequately prayerful? On through the 10 Commandments, to use each of the 10 Commandments. I could go through all of them, but I want to switch us to the Beatitudes, another look, to be able to ask and say and do an examen based on, have I been pure of heart? Have I been merciful? Have I been a peacemaker? How have I mourned over the losses of my life and of my day? To be able to use those wonderful words of the Beatitudes, those great guides, to reflect on, how have I lived this great faith, this gift of faith that God has given us? A last one is one that I encountered the other day. A great moral theologian of the 20th century, Bernard Herring, wrote a very small book on the sacrament of reconciliation. And as he was ending the book, he offered an examen based on the Our Father. And he took those great petitions of the Our Father. Our Father, how have I related to God and God's presence in my life? Hallowed be thy name, right? Have I treated you as the holy and center of the loves of my life? Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Have I been willing to let your kingdom come into my life and my world, my relationships, and the manner in which I live, work, share with others? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Have I been listening to God's will or my own will? You can take the entire Our Father and you could reflect over it for years. Those examens all, it's not again about punishing ourselves and putting weights of sinfulness upon ourselves. It's more where we find sin, to know that sin, through an examen, may be God's calling to us to a new way of living. So we can use the examens, brothers and sisters, in Lent, in the morning, in the evening, in various ways throughout our life. Wonderful tools for us to be renewed.
Please like, subscribe, or comment below.